What's up, family? Welcome to Unauthorized History. If you are well acquainted with African American history, then you are aware of Rosa Parks' historic refusal to relinquish her seat to a white passenger that marked a high point in the civil rights movement. But did you know that 11 years prior, a well-known baseball legend did the same thing during his time in the military? The man I'm referring to is Jackie Robinson. Let's get into it.
The battle's won. Think again. The fact is, for each one we reach, there's one we can't. And if we can't reach them, chances are nobody can. Because a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Alright, family. So many of us know Jackie Robinson as the man who broke Major League Baseball's color barrier, becoming the first African American to play baseball in the MLB. But are you aware of his military career and his heroic actions? Let's talk about it. On December 7, 1941, the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service launched an attack on the United States Pearl Harbor Naval Base. The attack set off a series of events that culminated in the United States formally entering into World War II. Now, this war required major manpower, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt ordered black men to register for the draft under the conditions that they would remain segregated. On April 3, 1942, Jackie Robinson, who was 23 years old at the time, was drafted into the United States Army. His completion of the initial entry training and his subsequent assignment to Fort Riley, Arkansas, made him one of the 1 million African American men and women who served during World War II. Now, it is noted that he joined with an injured ankle. The strict military entrance physical that is required to join the military today would have probably disqualified him from service. Jackie broke his ankle twice, once in 1937 while playing football for Pasadena Junior College, and then again in 1941 while playing for the Los Angeles Bulldogs. Did you guys know that Jackie Robinson also played football? How many of you were aware of that? Nevertheless, Jackie Robinson was allowed to serve. Black soldiers were forced to undergo inferior training, physical abuse, racial slurs, and a host of other injustices during his time. Despite all of this, Jackie was ambitious and still strived for more. He promoted to the rank of corporal and was a standout on the firing range. He then applied to become a commissioned officer in the Army shortly after that, and he was denied. In 1943, some sources estimate that only 1.1% of African Americans were commissioned officers in the military. Jackie Robinson leveraged his friendship with heavyweight boxing champion Joe Louis, who advocated and vouched for more African Americans to become commissioned officers. Joe Louis had connections with Truman Gibson, the Assistant Secretary of War, who was also an African American. After an investigation was conducted, Jackie and several other African Americans received their commission. Lieutenant Jackie Robinson was very strong-willed and headstrong, and he had no problem with speaking out and taking a stand against many of the civil rights injustices that he and the other black soldiers endured during their time in service. According to archives.gov, in one instance, he engaged in an animated telephone shouting match with a white major over whether black soldiers deserved fuller access to the installation's post exchange. Further, he refused to play football for the post when he was not allowed to play on his all-white baseball team. When his commanding officer reminded the lieutenant that he could be ordered to play, Robinson agreed that that was so, but remarked that he could not be ordered to play well. In 1944, Jackie was transferred to Camp Hood, Texas. Camp Hood is now known as Fort Hood. There was a vast amount of racial tension at this post, in part due to the racial climate of the neighboring towns and the segregated environment of the post. The contracting of the military bus system to the civilian network compounded the already looming racial tension. On July 6, 1944, Jackie would be reminded of just how bad it was to be a black man living in the Jim Crow era. In a letter to Truman Gibson, Jackie stated the following: "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you again, but under the circumstances, there seems to be no alternative. On or about the 7th of July, I was at Camp Hood, Texas, visiting the Colored Officers Club, and upon leaving, I took a shuttle bus from the club to the Central Station. As I moved to the rear, I noticed one of the officers' wives, and I sat down beside her. The lady is very fair and to many people looks to be white. It is evident that the driver seemed to resent my talking to her and told me to move to the rear. He didn't ask the lady to move, so I refused. When I did, he threatened to make trouble for me when we reached the bus station. Upon reaching the bus station, a white lady tells me that she is going to place charges against me. She said she heard the driver tell me to move to the rear. I told her I didn't care if she preferred charges against me, and she went away angry. That is the last that was said to the lady, and the next thing I hear is I've cursed a white lady out. I feel now that I should have, but I've never cursed one out, and I certainly didn't start with her. Little advice. I want to know just how far I should go with the case. What I mean is, should I appeal to the NAACP and the Negro press? I don't want any unfavorable publicity for myself or the Army, but I believe in fair play, and I feel I have to let someone in on the case. If I write the NAACP, I hope to get statements from all the witnesses, because a broad-minded person can see how the people framed me. You can see, sir, that I need your advice. I don't care what the outcome of the trial is, because I know I am being framed and the charges aren't too bad. I would like to get your advice about the publicity. I have a lot of good publicity out, and I feel I have numerous friends on the press, but I want first to hear from you before I do anything that I will be sorry for later on. Sir, as I said, I don't mind trouble, but I do believe in fair play and justice. I feel that I'm being taken in this case, and I will tell people about it unless the trial is fair. Let me hear from you so I can see what steps I need to take. Signed, Lieutenant Jackie Robinson, Ward 11B, McCloskey General Hospital, Temple, Texas. Now, the rest of what you're about to hear is archives.gov account of the incident. Although Robinson had been counseled by both the NAACP and Gibson to obtain a civilian lawyer, he failed to do so, probably because he had believed he lacked the resources to afford the legal fees. Nevertheless, his Army-appointed defense attorney, Captain William A. Klein, a white Texan, skillfully brought out inconsistencies in the prosecution witnesses' accounts, including a denial by one prosecution witness, Private First Class Ben Muckyworth, that he had used the N-word in referring to Robinson when another MP had acknowledged that Muckleworth had indeed done so. As part of the trial strategy, prosecutors reduced the final charges so as to remove reference to the bus incident as contributory to Robinson's behavior later. However, Klein, by careful questioning, managed to introduce enough into evidence to strongly suggest Robinson had been consistently confronted with a racially hostile environment. By separating facts from interpretations, Klein introduced the very real possibility that scarcely suppressed racial animosities may have provoked Assistant Provost Marshal Gerald Baer to overreact to Robinson's assertiveness, construing it as uppity rather than legitimate expression of righteous resentment. Further, Klein was able to shed doubt on whether Captain Baer sufficiently articulated recognizable and specific orders for Lieutenant Robinson to obey, and in fact whether the entire incident had been mishandled militarily by Baer. Time and again, court members pressed Baer as to what he actually said versus what he intended to say. It emerged that Baer could not say for sure whether Robinson had ever received orders at all, and that the thoroughly agitated young officer had a right to be confused. Ultimately, after all testimony was heard, the court acquitted the defendant of all charges. Jackie Robinson later separated from the Army and went on to become the baseball legend and civil rights activist that we know him as today. Jackie Robinson was a brave man whose accomplishment deserves to be celebrated. Wow, family, can you imagine if Jackie Robinson had been found guilty? Would he have ever been picked up in Major League Baseball? Would he have gone on to become the Major League Baseball legend that we know him as today? Those are questions that we can only wonder about, thankfully. Please let me know your thoughts on this video down below in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back with another video very soon. Alright, peace family.